Hello and welcome to Yoga Dharma TV. My name's Fran and today we'll be looking at backbends with my wonderful student George. He's particularly keen on backbends, he finds them particularly easy, but we'll also be looking at some simpler ways for anybody to practice at home. Okay, so luckily George is already very warmed up this evening, but you may also want to do a few warm-up stretches through your quads. So he's starting in Shavasana and he's going to start to bend his knees and bring his feet as close to his buttocks as he's comfortable to do so. Now he's wishing to have his feet hip distance apart, the toes turned in and the heels in line with the hips. His fingertips are working as close to his heels as possible. And he's trying to roll his shoulders into the floor and tuck his chin in very slightly. And the knees are directly over the top of the ankles. So on his next in-breath, he's going to contract the pelvic floor and tuck the tailbone very slightly. And when he next exhales, he's going to activate his lower belly. So lift the lower belly from the pubis bone towards the navel. And on the next in-breath, he's just going to lift his hips away from the floor about ½ an inch. And then exhale, lower the back down. And by doing so, he can see how he's feeling tonight in his back. Now we know that George is already warm, but if you practice this way every time, you know that you're safe. So again, breathing in and lifting up again, George. About ½ an inch, not too high. Just seeing how your back's feeling tonight. And then exhaling, slowly lowering down vertebrae by vertebrae. Okay, so he seems quite comfortable and you may be quite comfortable. So once again, he's going to breathe in, but this time lift the hips off the floor about 4 inches. So breathing in and lifting up slowly, 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 keeping the tailbone tucked, trying to work those thighs. And exhaling, lowering. And you can continue practicing like this as high up as you need to practice. You can also practice with blocks between your knees to make it a little bit harder. And you can also practice with a nice comfortable cushion underneath your back. So George is going to work up a little higher now. So breathing in and lifting up all the way into your bridge now, George. And holding that position. So he wants to keep his knees turned in very slightly, trying to tuck the tailbone, lengthen the back, well done, and still keeping to ease, still needing to ease your fingertips towards the toes. And once again, exhaling, easing the buttocks down, easing down vertebrae by vertebrae, allowing the ribs to drop slowly. So we're going to practice our second bridge position now. If that one was a little too difficult for you, then you rest there and you practice no further. But if you found it quite easy, you can continue with George and work for your second version of bridge. So we're going to work into our second version now. So George is keeping the tailbone tucked, pelvic floor lifted, lower belly active, and then he's going to breathe in and start to lift his hips towards the ceiling, lifting vertebrae by vertebrae, and then taking the arms, if he feels comfortable to do so, up and overhead. So really easing into shoulders now, keeping the chin tucked in. If he wishes to, he can interlace the fingers behind his back and push the hands away, and that eases into his shoulders just a little bit further. And then exhale, lowering the shoulders down, the upper back, the mid back, the lower back, and then slowly bringing the hands back down by his sides, keeping the tailbone tucked, flattening the lower back onto the mat. Okay, so we're going to practice our third version of bridge tonight. Again, if that was a little difficult for you, then that is more than enough. So breathing in now, George, slowly starting to lift the hips towards the ceiling. Keeping the pelvic floor lifted, tailbone tucked, abdomen drawn in, rolling as high up onto your shoulders as you can. And now if he feels comfortable to do so, he's going to take his hands underneath his back to support the lower back, the wrists working towards the center of the spine, the fingertips curling around his waist. So that may be more than enough for most of you, but George has been practicing bridge for quite a long time now. He may wish to lift the right leg to the ceiling as he breathes in and points the toes. And then exhale, lower that leg down. And then he may wish to breathe in and lift the left leg to the ceiling. Pointing the toes. And then exhale, slowly lowering that leg back down, making sure his feet are nice and square. And now he can release his hands and slowly release the back down to the floor. Shoulders, upper back, mid back, lower back touching the floor, and the tailbone. So flattening the back now, George, and just breathing in and drawing your knees into your chest. And those at home may feel better bringing one leg in at a time, but if you've been practicing a long while, then both legs at the same time is absolutely fine. So he's gently going to rock out his back, ease out his back, before he practices the last of his back bends tonight. So I suggest at home you only practice this if you're working with a teacher, or you've already been practicing Urdvha Dhanurasana for a long time, upward bow. So once more, George is going to place his feet on the floor. Feet are hip distance apart. He's just measuring his feet with his hands. Some of us haven't as longer arms as George, and it's more difficult to take hold of the ankles. That's fine. You just have to work out where the toes are and the heels are in line with your hips. And you can use a block between your feet to measure that if that's easier. Okay, so now George is going to breathe in and sweep the arms up and overhead and tuck his fingertips behind his shoulders, bending his elbows, thumbs working in towards the neck. So as much as possible, he wants to keep his elbows drawn towards one another rather than flaying out to the middle of the room. So trying to draw the elbows towards one another. That's fantastic, George. And now he's going to start to breathe in and start to lift the tailbone away from the floor, entering bridge position. Setu Bandhasana. Stretching the thighs and then slowly easing the upper back away from the floor, keeping the tailbone tucked. Trying to roll the shoulders around the armpits, relaxing the head as much as possible, and pushing the pubis bone up to the ceiling as though he's balancing a tray of drinks on his abdomen. And he really does look like that's how he's practicing. And now George is going to touch his head down for one and bring his hands in just a little. And this is only for the more practiced of you at home. And then breathe in and lift up once more, keeping the tailbone tucked. And now he's going to try and draw the knees back towards the heels, so it opens up the upper chest. Fantastic, George. He's lifting his Tailbone up to the ceiling, that's amazing. And starting to just bring the elbows towards one another very slightly. On the exhale, he's going to touch down again. Well done. Release the head, tuck the chin in, and slowly lower the back down, vertebrae by vertebrae, towards the floor. And hugging his knees into his chest to reverse that posture, keeping the chin tucked in and gently rocking out the back. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you once again to my wonderful student George. He practiced an amazing backbend tonight, so thank you so much. Join us again and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!